Hello children, today we are going to discuss about a very important concept in 10th standard science, that is biomagnification. To explain it in a better way, I'm going to share the screen. So if you ask me what is biomagnification, first we should know what is the meaning of bio. Bio means living organisms and magnification means the process by which something gets magnified or more and more day by day or gradually. So if you accumulate or combine both the terms, bio and magnification, it comes as biomagnification. So from the words, it is very clear that something is getting accumulated inside the living organisms. That's why it is known as biomagnification. So if you want to define biomagnification, how can you define? The accumulation in the level of non-biodegradable substances in successive trophic level of a food chain is known as biomagnification. Now let us break this particular definition to understand it. Accumulation means getting accumulated, getting collected in the level of non-biodegradable substances. We all know that the substances which are present in the ecosystem or on earth are of two types. One type of substances, degradable, biodegradable substances, those substances which can be broken down into simpler forms by the help of microorganisms. They have specific enzymes, they break it down into simpler substances. So those things, they do not cause pollution in the environment. But whereas few substances are there which are known as non-biodegradable substances, those are specially man-made substances or toxic substances which cannot be broken down by the microorganism or by the action of microorganism. They do not have the enzymes to break them down. So we call them as non-biodegradable substances. For example, DDT, which is used as pesticide, heavy metals, which gets accumulated in the living organism in the food chain, and they cause lot of health hazards. So these non-biodegradable substances, when they get accumulated through the food chain, successive trophic level of food chain, we have already learned about food chain. You can see I have depicted one food chain here: grass, grasshopper, squirrel, and owl. So in this, you can see that when the non-biodegradable substances, as they are not broken down, so when they move in the food chain from the lower trophic level to higher trophic level, or from producer level to the primary consumer, then secondary consumer, and then tertiary consumer. For example, if you analyze this particular food chain, you can figure out that if the non-biodegradable substances are entering into the grass, okay, so grass is eaten by grasshopper, and so the accumulation of non-biodegradable substances, for example, the pesticides, there will be more inside the grasshopper, and slowly it will go to the squirrel, okay, and then it will go to the owl, right? So what is biomagnification? It is the accumulation of non-biodegradable substances, right, in successive trophic level of a food chain is known as biomagnification. So as we move from lower trophic level to higher trophic level, slowly the non-biodegradable substances, they get accumulated successively. Means as we move, the accumulation increases, right? So where the accumulation will be maximum? In the tertiary consumer. For example, in this particular food chain, the consumption or the accumulation of non-biodegradable substances will be maximum in case of owl. Okay, so now I hope it is clear now what is biomagnification. Now we'll see What next in this particular context? So we can see it happens. How does this biomagnification happens? In detail way, we are going to learn. So for example, already I have given you the example, but in detail, I'm going to explain now. Pesticides are non-biodegradable chemicals because they cannot be broken down by the microorganism into simple forms. And we all know that for agricultural purposes, to get more yield of the crops or for better crop production, farmers, they use pesticides so that the crop cannot be attacked by the microorganism, or they cannot be destroyed, they'll not have diseases. So in that case, they spray these non-biodegradable pesticides, and a part of it will be mixed with soil and water. So these chemicals, they mix up with soil and water, and from soil water, these pesticides are absorbed by the growing plants along with water or other minerals. We all know that plants get the minerals from the soil, the roots, they absorb them and they transport it throughout the plants. Along with water, minerals move. In the similar way, the pesticides from the soil, they also enter into the plants. And when herbivores, the animals who depend on the plants for their food, when they eat plants, these chemicals enter into their bodies and get accumulated. These chemicals are transferred from one trophic level to another, as I have shown you in the previous slide. So again, I'll just go back and show you. So when those chemicals, they go into from the grass to grasshopper, so accumulation level will be more in the grasshopper. When the grasshopper will be eaten by the mouse or the rat, the accumulation will slowly increase in the rat, and at last the tertiary consumer, for example, the vulture, the owl, and whichever animal is dependent on the mouse, will get more amount of chemical in its body. So these chemicals are transferred from one trophic level to another in the food chain, and gradually they get accumulated. Okay, so till this, I hope it is clear, right? Now we'll move further. So I have shown here one example in a pictorial manner. So you can see here the concentration of chemicals and the pollutants. So we know that the smaller organisms like plankton and all, so when these pesticides are washed away and goes to the water bodies, they will be first consumed by the smaller organisms like planktons, zooplankton, phytoplankton. And when the smaller fishes, they eat them, then the accumulation of the pesticides or the pollutants or the chemicals will be more in them. And gradually, as we move in the food chain, so the smaller fishes are eaten by the large fishes, and then they will also get those pesticides and chemicals, and the concentration of those chemicals and pollutants will be more in them. And when human being is going to consume them, the big fish, then where the accumulation will be maximum in the human being. Remember, in the food chain, human being occupies the highest position. So as I said, when you move through the food chain, the accumulation gradually increases. So where the accumulation of these chemicals, pollutants, non-degradable substances will be more, they will be more in the human being, or whichever organism is at the top of the food chain. Same thing again I have shown in the form of a pyramid. Why I'm showing you all these pictures? Because in examination, you may get different varieties of pictures. You should be in a position to understand. The picture is depicting biomagnification. So here you can see water. The level of DDT concentration is only 1, but when it goes to the producers, the aquatic plants, smaller plants, so it's increasing. And slowly when it is going to zooplankton, the animal plankton, animal-like plankton, the animal-like, that means protozoa and all, the accumulation of the DDT is more, the DDT concentration is more. And as we move from one trophic level to another, to the small fish or large fish, it gradually increases. And where it is maximum? Fish-eating birds, right? Because they occupy the topmost position in the food chain. So here, through this pyramid, I tried to show you in terms of graphical data that how the concentration of chemical increases when you go from producer label to the higher label or the tertiary consumer label. Here also you can see algae, zooplankton, then small fish, then large fish, and at last the human being. Okay. This picture is depicting the spraying of pesticides, which is the major cause of biomagnification in our ecosystem or in our environment. Okay, and see, the person is spraying the pesticides, and the pesticides are accumulated in the producers, that means the crops or grass. And when the cow is eating the grass, the pesticides are entering into the food chain and they are now getting accumulated in the cow, and gradually it is moving to the milk and the meat. And then when human being consumes it, the accumulation of the pesticides are maximum in case of human being. Okay, now coming to the harmful effects of biomagnification in human being. Pesticides are non-degradable, biodegradable, already I have told, so they get accumulated at each trophic level. Since human occupy the top level in any food chain, maximum amount of accumulation takes place in human bodies, already we have discussed. This damages the health gradually. Definitely the toxic substances, if they are getting accumulated in the body, so the normal metabolic processes will be hampered. Okay, this damages the health gradually. Tests have shown that most commonly used pesticides like DDT, diethyl trichloroethane, is accumulating in human body through food chain. Okay, now coming to the possible questions. Before that, I just want to tell, how can you prevent biomagnification? Point number one, by minimizing or not using pesticides for crop production or in agricultural purposes. That is only possible if you are going for organic farming. That means minimal use of pesticides. And if you're using, those should be natural. Okay. Second, going vegan. Vegan means eating only vegetarian food. So that as the food chain is shorter the food chain, accumulation of these bio non-degradable substances will be lesser. So if human being is vegetarian, then the quantity of accumulation will be lesser. Fine. So these two are the major steps which can be adapted by human being to reduce accumulation of non-degradable substance. And now coming to the possible questions. We have discussed about the topic, so we should know what kind of questions we can expect from this particular topic. So first one is define biomagnification. Already I have told, the successive accumulation of non-biodegradable substances in the food chain gradually is known as biomagnification. Explain how pesticides enter into the food chain and subsequently to our body. So especially the pesticides, that non-biodegradable substances. So when for agricultural purpose, to get better crop yield, the farmers are using them in their fields. They are absorbed by the plants, crop plants. And as they are non-degradable, they are getting accumulated there. And when any organism is eating it directly or indirectly, it is entering into the food chain, it is moving through the food chain, and gradually it is getting accumulated. It is increasing the concentration of these substances. For example, DDT is increasing. And as we occupy the maximum, means the highest position in the food chain, so the extent of accumulation of pesticides are maximum in our body. Then third question, explain biomagnification of DDT in the food chain comprising of phytoplankton, zooplankton, small fish, big fish, and human being. Very simple. So the first, the DDT, which is sprayed in the agricultural land, gets washed away and enters into the water bodies. In water bodies, it enters into the phytoplankton. And when zooplanktons, they are dependent on the phytoplankton for their food. So from the phytoplankton, they enter into the zooplankton. From there to the small fish, then big fish, and then at last, when human being consumes the fish, these pesticides like DDT, they enter into the human body. Okay. Explain the phenomenon of biomagnification. Already I have explained. How does it affect the organisms belonging to different trophic levels, particularly tertiary consumer? I already told that as we move in the food chain slowly, so as this DDT enters into the food chain, it first enters into the phytoplankton, as I said, and when the zooplanktons, which are dependent on the phytoplankton for their food, the DDT enters into the zooplankton, and then to the small fish, and then at last it enters the big fish. When human being consumes the big fish, the DDT enters into the human being. But as human being is occupying the highest position in the ecosystem or the food chain, the concentration of DDT is maximum in human beings. Okay, so this is how the pesticides, they enter into the food chain and get magnified as we move from one trophic level to another. Name the substances responsible for biomagnification and why. First, you should know what are the substances which are getting magnified. Already in our discussion, we have discussed the substances which are non-biodegradable, the substances which cannot be broken down by the action of microorganism, the substances which cannot be broken down by the microorganism as they do not have the enzymes to break them. Those kind of substances only can get accumulated, and as we move in the trophic level, the concentration of them increases. And the example which is given in your NCERT textbook is DDT. Dichloro, diethyl, trichloroethane. Suggest any three methods to minimize biomagnification. Already two methods I have told you. The first one is minimizing or not using non-degradable synthetic pesticides or chemical pesticides for agricultural purpose. Instead of that, using natural pesticides or organic pesticides. Next, opting for organic farming. Third one, going vegan or avoiding any kind of meat product. As if you are vegetarian, the shorter the food chain, the lesser will be the magnification of non-biodegradable substances. The last question is, a geographical area contains organisms like snake, grasshopper, peacock, grass, and frog. If pesticide was used in this area to kill insects, which among the organisms will have maximum amount of pesticide? Name the phenomenon involved and define it. Before attempting this question, first you have to form the food chain using the organisms which are given in the question. If you analyze the question, you will find out that the food chain will start from grass, first trophic level, then grasshopper, second trophic level, then frog, third trophic level, snake, fourth trophic level, and the tertiary consumer is peacock, who occupies the highest position in this particular given food chain. So name the phenomenon involved. Definitely biomagnification. Define it. Definition already we have discussed. And who will have the maximum amount of pesticide? Definitely who occupies the highest position in this particular food chain. So that will be peacock. Thank you, children. We'll meet again with another topic.